The first thing Tyler noticed about Willow Oaks wasn't the roses. It was the silence. Too quiet. Not the peaceful kind. This was the kind of silence that felt watched. Artificial. Like something was lurking behind the shutters of every perfect house. Lawn sprinklers ticked in eerie synchronization. Mailboxes gleamed unnaturally bright. And not a single trash bin was out of place. Everything was curated. He'd barely finished unloading his last moving box when she appeared, like a glitch in the simulation. Short blonde bob, crisp tennis visor, and a clipboard tucked like a weapon under her elbow. "Hi there," she said sweetly, her voice as thin as the smile that never reached her eyes. "I'm Karen, head of the Homeowners Association. We like to greet our new residents personally." Tyler, still in a faded flannel shirt and boots covered in dust from the road, wiped his hand and extended it. "Tyler, good to meet you." Her eyes flicked past him, lingering on the matte black motorcycle parked neatly in the driveway. Then the security cameras at each corner of the house. Then his dog, Kilo, a retired K9 shepherd lounging by the porch, eyeing her like she owed him money. "Oh," she said flatly, scribbling something. "Is that military gear?" She pointed at a locked trunk he had yet to carry in. Tyler nodded slowly. "Old job. Now it's just memories." Karen's smile tightened, teeth gritting behind polite words. "We do ask all residents to avoid anything that could cause alarm to others. You know, for the sake of community peace." He raised an eyebrow. "Alarming like a trunk." "Just keeping everything peaceful," she said quickly, tapping her clipboard like a gavel. "That's our motto here. Harmony, consistency, and safety." He gave her a patient nod. "Sounds good. I'm all about peace." Karen's eyes narrowed like she didn't believe him. Not for a second. Then, like a switch flipped, she snapped her fingers and laughed. "Anyway, I'll send you the HOA handbook. It's only 86 pages. Don't worry. Most of it's just guidelines. With consequences." She winked. Before Tyler could ask what she meant, she turned and strutted off like a mall cop with presidential authority. Kilo let out a low growl as the gate clicked shut. Tyler knelt beside him. "Yeah, buddy, she's definitely going to be a problem." That evening, he sat on the porch sipping black coffee while the sun bled red over the rooftops. From his chair, he could see Karen's house diagonally across the cul-de-sac, light after light flicked on like an interrogation room. Every time a neighbor passed, they stopped to whisper with her. Glances were thrown his way. Smiles were forced. One of the neighbors, a lanky man in a golf polo, tried to wave at him. Tyler waved back. The man immediately lowered his hand like he'd just broken a rule. Kilo sat up, ears twitching. Tyler followed the dog's gaze. And there she was again. Karen, peeking from behind her blinds. Not a twitch. Just two wide eyes framed by vertical blinds, tracking him like a hawk with a vendetta. He leaned back, expression unreadable. He'd seen eyes like that before, on gang leaders and dirty informants. People who wanted control so badly, they'd burn down their own house to light the match. But Karen didn't know who she was watching. Didn't know what kind of life Tyler had lived before moving here. She thought she was dealing with some quiet guy with a dog and a motorcycle. But Karen had just made a fatal error. She thought she was the hunter. And Tyler Thompson was about to remind her what happens when you stalk a predator. The first notice came at dawn. Tyler found it taped neatly to his door, printed in Comic Sans, of all fonts, and sealed with the official HOA logo like a badge of honor. The paper fluttered in the morning breeze, delicate as a threat disguised as neighborly concern. Violation. Trash cans left in view past approved time. 5:02 p.m. Fine pending. $50. Please ensure all receptacles are stored within garage perimeter. Tyler stared at it, then looked at the security footage on his phone. The timestamp showed him wheeling the bin inside at 5:00 p.m. sharp. 2 minutes early. He gave a soft chuckle. "Okay, Karen. That's how we're playing." Over the next week, the notes multiplied like weeds. One flagged his porch light as unapproved white intensity. Another claimed his motorcycle disturbed the harmony of the neighborhood. The kicker? A fine for unsanctioned outdoor decor because of a miniature American flag in his flower bed. Each violation was anonymous. No name, no signature, just a barcode, and the HOA emblem staring back like a robotic middle finger. Tyler didn't flinch. He collected every notice and filed them in a manila folder labeled Karen's War. But things turned from annoying to calculated when he noticed the neighbors' shifting behavior. At first, they waved, nervously. Now they averted their eyes. Conversations stopped when he passed. One morning, a jogger crossed the street mid-stride to avoid his lawn. Tyler's instincts, honed in backroom interrogations and cartel busts, told him this wasn't coincidence. Someone was whispering poison into their ears. Then came the email. From an anonymous address, sent through a burner service. Subject: Urgent and AI I believe the new resident at 74 East Birch Lane is involved in illegal activity. Suspicious military containers, large guard dog, cameras in every corner. It's not safe. I think he has weapons. Please investigate before something terrible happens. A concerned citizen. Tyler stared at the screen. His face didn't move, but his blood simmered. He scanned the message headers. Whoever sent this didn't realize Tyler had trained cyber units that hunted darknet traffickers. Tracking down a sloppy HOA rat would be like swatting a fly with a drone strike. But for now, he played it cool. He walked his dog as usual, smiled at the neighbors, even waved at Karen, who stood in her garden with shears in hand, pretending to prune roses, but clearly watching his every move. Her smile returned, too tight and smug. She thinks she's got me cornered, he thought. She thinks if she stacks the paper long enough, the weight will bury me. But Tyler wasn't just a man who'd faced danger. He was trained to dismantle operations from the inside out. So that night, in the glow of his desk lamp, he began to document everything. Violation notices, footage of Karen circling his driveway late at night, conversations caught by his audio-enabled porch camera. He even took a slow cruise past the HOA office and noted the security lapses, the trash bins left open, the timing of Karen's car. Patterns formed. Habits exposed themselves. And at the heart of it, like a spider in a web of her own making, sat Karen. She wants to make me look like the threat. Let's see how she handles being on my radar. He opened a locked drawer and pulled out a black steel case. Inside, his old U.S. Marshal badge gleamed under the light. Tyler hadn't used it in 6 months. But now the hunt was personal. The silence was wrong again. It wasn't the usual Willow Oak silence, the choreographed quiet of trimmed hedges and tension hiding behind picket fences. This silence was heavier, like the air had paused, holding its breath. Tyler's eyes snapped open. Kilo growled low beside the bed, ears up, body tense like a loaded spring. Then came the flash. Red and blue lights flooded his bedroom in jolting bursts, sweeping across the ceiling like a crime scene rave. A voice boomed outside through a bullhorn. Occupant of 74 East Birch, step out with your hands where we can see them. Tyler's pulse didn't spike. It slowed, focused. He slipped out of bed, calmly opened his closet, and grabbed 2 things: a sweatshirt and his U.S. Marshal badge. Outside, squad cars boxed in the cul-de-sac. Officers moved with guns drawn, crouching behind doors, barking to each other over radios. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, eyes wide with a cocktail of fear and curiosity. Karen stood across the street, bathrobe tied, phone in hand, pretending to look shocked. Her performance was flawless, except for one thing. She couldn't stop watching the front door like she was waiting for a monster to emerge. But it wasn't a monster who stepped out. Tyler walked down the porch steps slowly, arms raised, badge held high in one hand, phone in the other. I am U.S. Marshal Tyler Thompson. Badge ID 4428. I'm coming out unarmed. Repeat, unarmed. The chaos paused. One of the officers stepped forward, blinking as he looked at the badge. Wait, you're a marshal? Tyler nodded. Retired 6 months. Someone filed a false 911 call. Claimed I was holding hostages and had automatic weapons. He turned his phone screen toward them. Live feed from his indoor cameras. Empty house. No noise. No hostages. No threat. The lead officer cursed under his breath. Jesus Christ. This is a swatting. More like suburban warfare, Tyler muttered. And I'd got my prime suspect. He didn't have to say her name. Every officer turned their heads at the same time, toward Karen. She gasped theatrically, clutching her robe, playing victim like it was a role she'd rehearsed 100 times. I was terrified. I saw shadows, heard yelling. I thought he was dangerous. But it was too late. The curtain had lifted. The actors were exposed. One of the younger officers, clearly shaken, turned to his supervisor. Sir, we just aimed rifles at a federal officer because of a neighborhood tip. Tyler lowered his hands. It's all right. You were doing your job. But now I'm going to do mine. He turned without another word and walked back inside, calm as ever. Behind him, the police diffused like a deflating balloon. No arrests, no citations, but the tension, it was thicker than ever. Inside, Tyler sat at his desk, flipping open his laptop. He pulled up the neighborhood security feed. External cameras on every corner. One clip showed a figure standing near his mailbox an hour before the call was made, holding a phone. Blonde bob, white robe. Karen. He zoomed in and took a screenshot. Labeled it Karen_SWAT_capture_01. He opened a new file folder on his desktop and named it exactly what this was. Operation Thorn Queen. This was no longer just HOA harassment. This was personal sabotage, and it could have gotten him killed. But the rules had just changed. Karen thought she sent a message. She had. And now Tyler was going to answer it, loud, clear, and with the full weight of the law behind him. The next morning, the neighborhood looked the same, but it felt different. Freshly watered lawns sparkled in the sun. Wind chimes clinked softly in the breeze. But underneath that postcard perfection, something rotten pulsed like a hidden infection. Karen smiled as she passed Tyler's house, but it was thin, brittle. He didn't return it. He just watched, calm, focused, calculating. Because now, he wasn't just some ex-fed with a motorcycle and a past. He was back on duty. The false report, the swatting, the anonymous HOA citations, none of it was random. It was precision harassment, and Tyler had a name for that in his field, targeted destabilization. But why? And how many times had she done this before? Tyler opened his laptop and entered a secure back channel known only to law enforcement veterans. One call to a favor-owing contact at the bureau, and a few minutes later, files began flooding in. Civil suits, suppressed police reports, an NDA settlement in Colorado, another in Georgia. Each file told a story. Karen hadn't just ruled HOAs, she'd destroyed lives through them. One man lost his job after she accused him of illegal drug activity, later dismissed. Another woman filed harassment claims after Karen accidentally sent the wrong photos to her husband. A veteran in Florida had his dog seized by animal control after anonymous complaints about aggression. That dog, a therapy animal. It was a pattern, and it always ended the same way. Karen walked away with her reputation intact, while her targets either moved out or got buried in red tape and fines. But I'm not moving, Tyler thought grimly. And I don't lose. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the corkboard he'd pinned behind his desk. Threads and printouts formed a web, and at its center, Karen's face stared back. Then came the real break. Footage from his own porch camera, filtered through facial recognition software. It showed Karen circling his home at 3:17 a.m., the night of the false report, flashlight in hand. She paused at the side gate, looked directly at a camera, and smiled. "Got you," Tyler whispered. He added the clip to a drive labeled Evidence, Priority, then began typing a report, just like he used to. Only this time, the subject wasn't a cartel lieutenant or a human trafficker. It was a suburban tyrant hiding behind flower beds and bylaws. But he wasn't just looking at what she'd done to him. He wanted to know how far the infection went. So he began knocking on doors. Quietly, casually, one neighbor at a time. Most were hesitant. Some cracked jokes. Others faked confusion. But a few opened up. Mrs. Nguyen from 2 houses down admitted Karen fined her for having too many children's toys on the lawn. A man named Ray whispered that he'd once seen Karen shouting at the mailman for delivering an Amazon package to a black family on the street. Another woman, eyes darting, confessed that Karen once offered her money to file a noise complaint against Tyler. "It's deeper than I thought," he realized. "She's not just controlling. She's coercing, intimidating, manipulating people like chess pieces on a board she built." That night, Tyler stood in his darkened garage, staring at the old tactical gear hanging neatly on hooks. His vest, his flashlight, his gloves, his U.S. Marshal field pack. He didn't put them on. Not yet. But he reached for the folder labeled Operation Thorn Queen and slid in the newest report. Karen had hidden behind a pristine mask for years. Now Tyler was peeling it off, one layer at a time. And when he was done, the neighborhood would see the real face behind the queen of the cul-de-sac. Karen wasn't expecting company. Certainly not at 6:00 a.m. She opened the door in her robe, coffee cup trembling slightly in one hand. Her lips curled into that carefully crafted smile, the same one Tyler had seen during a dozen false greetings and weaponized pleasantries. But this morning, his knock wasn't a neighborly visit. This was a warning shot. "Marshal Thompson," she said with syrupy sweetness. What a surprise. Tyler gave her a slow, unblinking look. "We need to talk." Her eyes flickered, just for a second, but her smile didn't drop. "Of course. Would you like to come in?" He stepped inside without answering. The interior was exactly what he expected, catalog perfect. White marble counters, brass fixtures, a wall-sized painting of a forest that looked expensive but soulless. Everything stage, everything fake. Karen followed him into the living room like a hostess on autopilot, setting her coffee down just so. "I'm assuming this isn't a social call." Tyler didn't sit. He stood in the middle of the room like a statue made of quiet thunder. "You filed the false report," he said. "The 911 call." Karen blinked. "I don't know what you mean." "You stood near my mailbox at 3:17 a.m. The camera caught your face. You made the call from a burner phone. I already have the tower pings. I'm working with the bureau now." "It's over, Karen." The air shifted. Her smile cracked. Not entirely, but enough to see the steel beneath. "You can't prove intent," she said quietly. "That's what they always miss." Tyler finally stepped forward, close enough for her to see the calm in his eyes. Not anger, not fear. Control. Intent doesn't matter when the pattern is this deep. You've harassed, slandered, and manipulated people in 3 states, civil court records, confidential settlements, HOA fines that violated federal housing codes. He leaned in, voice like gravel wrapped in silk. "You're not just an HOA president. You're a domestic predator who uses policies like piano wire." Karen's lips tightened. "You think anyone will believe you over me?" "I don't need belief," he replied. "I need evidence. And I've got enough to kickstart a multi-agency audit by next week. Financial records. Anonymous tip calls traced to you. Residents who were too scared to speak, but now they're lining up." Karen's mask slipped. Not completely, but enough for the venom to leak through. "I built this neighborhood," she hissed. "These people owe their peace to me. I keep it safe, orderly, clean. And if you think some ex-military burnout with a badge is going to scare me, you have no idea what I've survived. Tyler's gaze didn't flinch. I don't need to scare you. I just need to take the first thread. Then the whole thing unravels. He pulled a flash drive from his jacket and placed it neatly on her coffee table. This is the version I don't send to the authorities. Yet, think of it as a courtesy. Karen stared at the drive like it was a lit stick of dynamite. Then he turned, walked to the door, and paused with his hand on the knob. One more thing, he said without looking back. If one more neighbor gets fined without cause, if one more report is filed, if one more shred of harassment touches my property. He turned, eyes like iron. You won't be dealing with me in person next time. You'll be dealing with the law. And with that, he was gone. Karen stood alone, heart thudding, porcelain coffee cup cracking in her hand. She didn't realize until it was too late. Tyler hadn't just confronted her. He'd declared war. Tyler knew it wouldn't be quiet for long. It was too much of a threat, too bold a move. When you corner a predator, you don't just wait for it to make a mistake. You provoke it. You make it show its hand. And Karen was playing a game she didn't understand. By the time he returned home, the first sign was already there. A small envelope slipped under his door. No return address. No name. Just a bold red stamp with a jagged edge. Urgent. He bent down and picked it up, his fingers steady, his mind already analyzing the message hidden within the silence. Inside was a single crisp sheet of paper. You think you can outsmart me? One wrong move, Marshal, and your game is over. Tyler's lips twitched, but his expression didn't change. He didn't flinch. He folded the note and tucked it into his jacket pocket. Another piece of the puzzle. He wasn't sure if Karen was just desperate or delusional, but that note was a clear admission of guilt. She knew he was onto her. She knew she'd been exposed. And now she was in full damage control mode. What Tyler didn't expect, though, was the second layer of the attack. The next morning, he stepped outside and found his mailbox, sliced open, a clean surgical cut across the metal, as though someone had taken a tool to it with precision. Inside was another note, but this one wasn't typed. It was handwritten, and it looked like it had been scrawled in a hurry. Next time, your dog is next. We're always watching. His blood turned cold. Kilo was his partner, his ally. He wasn't just a dog. He was a member of the team. And now someone was threatening him in the cruelest way possible. Tyler's fists clenched, but his movements stayed measured. Calm. He pulled out his phone, flicked through the settings, and opened the security app. His cameras were all still active. He scrolled through the footage. The timestamp showed a man, young, scruffy, with a baseball cap pulled low, walking up his driveway late the previous night. He had the same malicious smile Karen had worn when she thought no one was watching. Tyler knew this wasn't just about him anymore. This was about power, about control. Karen wanted to break him, to send a message loud enough that he'd leave Willow Oaks. She didn't care about the law. She cared about her kingdom. But Tyler wasn't about to let that happen. He sent a quick text to a trusted contact within the police department to track the man down, then grabbed his gear. He wasn't going to let this slip. Not now. Not after everything he had sacrificed. But before he left, there was one thing he had to do. He walked over to his garage, opened the safe, and pulled out a small, nondescript bag. Inside was his U.S. Marshal gear, tactical, clean, and ready for action. The weight of it felt comforting, familiar. He grabbed Kilo's leash and slipped it on the dog's collar. Together, they moved out. The road to Karen's house was lined with perfect lawns and pristine fences. The houses looked like they were ripped from a magazine, their owners just cogs in a larger machine of suburban peace. But Tyler had seen the cracks. He'd seen the rot beneath the shiny surface. He parked a few houses down from Karen's and stepped out. Kilo, ever vigilant, kept his head low, his eyes scanning for any movement. Tyler didn't knock. Instead, He slipped around to the back of the house, where the fence was higher and the shadows longer. He pressed his back against the cool stone of the neighbor's house and waited, breathing shallow, careful. The hours dragged on. He could hear the faint hum of air conditioners, the occasional bark of a dog, and then the sound of a door opening. Karen's voice, sharp and practiced, carried on the wind. "Make it quick," she said, her words clipped. "We don't want him snooping around here again." Tyler's heart skipped. She's meeting someone. And it's not just about the HOA. He pulled his phone out again, checked the live feed from his cameras, and saw a figure entering her garage. Tyler straightened. This was it. He had her. Tyler could hear the faint crackle of tires against gravel. His heart rate quickened, but he kept his breathing steady. He had her cornered now. In the dim light of Karen's garage, a shadow passed across the window, followed by the unmistakable sound of metal clinking, a brief flash of a hand reaching for something. Tyler's eyes narrowed. This wasn't a simple meeting. He wasn't just watching Karen. He was watching her orchestrate something much darker than neighborhood bylaws. The man she'd met earlier was no random passerby. He was wearing a bulky jacket, moving too deliberately, his hands twitching as if he were hiding something. Tyler's instincts screamed at him. He snapped a photo with his phone, an easy move with his camera app. That was a key detail he couldn't miss. Someone was helping her, someone dangerous. Tyler's mind raced. He needed to move. Quickly, he checked the footage again. There was a small backdoor entry into the garage that led into the house. He could slip through, maybe get a look at what Karen was hiding. The plan was simple. Get inside, see the weaponry she was storing, or whatever it was, and let the cops handle the rest. But there was no room for error now. No room for hesitation. With Kilo on his heel, Tyler approached the back gate of the house, his footsteps soundless on the soft earth. He paused in front of the door. For the first time in days, everything felt like it was coming to a head. Like a final crescendo of all the tension, all the games she'd been playing. He reached for the handle, ready to turn it, when a voice sliced through the night air. "You think you're clever, don't you?" Tyler froze. That voice, cold, sharp, and utterly confident. It was Karen. She was standing right behind him. For a split second, his mind reeled. How had she known? How had she found him out here, at the back of the house, sneaking around like a shadow? But his training kicked in. He didn't turn around. He didn't flinch. He didn't need to. Instead, his hand reached up and pressed against his earpiece. "Move in," he whispered into the mic, keeping his tone steady. "I've got her." The voice from his earpiece buzzed in his ear. "We're already here, on your 6." Tyler's breath slowed. The backup had arrived. Quiet, precise, just like he planned. He didn't have to worry about playing the lone agent anymore. Karen's heels clicked sharply against the concrete as she closed the distance between them. "I knew you were lurking. All of you. Playing your little games." Her voice was tight with rage, but there was something else there too. Something dark, something that had been waiting. Tyler didn't turn around. He didn't have to. He already knew everything he needed to know. "You were always a pawn in this, Marshal," she hissed, the words slithering through the air like venom. "You never understood what you were up against." Tyler took a deep breath and let it out slowly. This was it. The final move. "I understand perfectly," he said, his voice low but firm. "You're not the queen of this game, Karen. You're the one getting checkmated." In that moment, the door to the garage creaked open. Kilo growled in warning. The man from earlier, still lurking, still dangerous, stepped into the frame, hands raised. But Tyler wasn't alone. 3 more officers appeared behind Karen, all with guns drawn, moving in perfect synchronization, just like the silent cavalry they were. Karen's eyes went wide, realizing the trap had closed around her. She stepped backward, eyes darting around for an escape that wasn't there. "You," she started, but Tyler's hand was already raised, signaling to the officers. "Put your hands where I can see them, Karen," he said, his voice final. The game was over. Karen's breath caught, the last thread of defiance twisting in her chest. She took a step back, her heels tapping sharply against the concrete. The officers behind her shifted, their hands twitching toward their holsters. The weight of the situation pressed in like a storm, and for the first time in years, Karen was the one being watched. Tyler stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Karen's lips curled into a thin, desperate smile. "You think you've won, don't you? I'm untouchable. The law bends for people like me." Tyler's gaze hardened, his eyes unwavering as he stepped closer, the tension in the air thick enough to taste. "The law doesn't bend for anyone, Karen. It just takes longer for some people to realize it." The silence that followed was deafening. She could hear the subtle hum of the streetlights, the rustling of the leaves in the trees, but nothing could drown out the rush of her pulse in her ears. Tyler wasn't just confronting her now. He was dissecting her whole world, piece by piece. She looked around, frantic, calculating. Her mind raced, desperate for a way out. She turned to the officers, her hands trembling. "You can't do this. I have connections. People owe. I know all about your connections." Tyler interrupted, his voice icy. He didn't need to hear her excuses. He already had everything. With a quick motion, one of the officers stepped forward and clicked handcuffs around Karen's wrists. The cold metal bit into her skin, but it was nothing compared to the weight of the reality crashing down on her. "Everything," Tyler continued, "from your illegal fines, to the blackmail, to the threats. It's all over. You're going to face charges for more than just harassment. This is organized manipulation. You've broken enough laws to keep you in prison for a very long time." Karen's face twisted with fury and disbelief, her jaw clenched as she struggled against the cuffs. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I will destroy you." Tyler's gaze never wavered. He could see the cracks in her bravado, the way her eyes flickered between rage and fear. She had no more cards to play. "You destroyed a lot of people, Karen. You manipulated, you bullied, you broke laws and lives. But you're not untouchable. No one is." She was silent, her mouth agape, her chest rising and falling rapidly as the enormity of her situation settled in. Tyler reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small device. "Here's your last lesson. I've been tracking you for a while now, and you've been on the wrong side of too many systems. Your network of corruption. It's all logged." He held up the device, the blinking red light signaling the sync. "This is your future. Every file, every transaction, every document you thought you erased. It's all here. You're not the queen of anything anymore." Her eyes flared with panic as she realized the truth. All the false reports, all the manipulation, the connection she had hidden away, gone in an instant. A single click from Tyler, and her empire of lies had crumbled. Every person she'd ever silenced, every life she'd ever ruined, was now part of a permanent record. Karen staggered back, her face drained of color. She looked around as if hoping for a last-minute savior, but there was no one. There was nothing left to protect her. Her reign was over. Tyler stepped closer, his voice quieter now, but still with that same steel edge. "You played a dangerous game, Karen, and now you'll see what happens when you gamble with people's lives." Karen opened her mouth to speak, whether to beg, to threaten, or to lie. Tyler didn't care. It was over. With a final nod, he turned to the officers, signaling them to escort her to the car. As they led her away, he stood there for a moment, watching her falter, watching the walls she'd so carefully constructed collapse under the weight of the truth. The neighborhood was quiet once again, but this time it was different. Tyler stood on the porch, his eyes scanning the streets. The air was clearer now, free from the poison of lies and manipulation. The neighbors who had once feared Karen, who had once been too scared to speak out, could breathe again. Kilo, his loyal companion, nudged his hand with a soft whine, bringing him back to the present. Tyler bent down and ruffled the dog's ears, a rare, tired smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "You did good, buddy," he muttered. He looked up one last time at the house, the symbol of everything Karen had built. But in the end, her kingdom had fallen. The game was over. Tyler wasn't just a retired marshal anymore. He was the one who brought justice, one move at a time.